All right, so today we're going to take a deep dive into some pretty intense imagery.
Oh, yeah.
4 angels chained at the Euphrates River.
Wow.
Just waiting to be unleashed and destroy a third of humanity.
Yeah, a third of humanity.
I mean, that's a lot of people.
It is.
Our source this time is a YouTube video titled Los Ángeles Encadenados del Euphrates. Se acerca el fin.
Okay.
From the channel Misterios Divinos. And we're going to go beyond just the video.
Okay.
And really get into some of the deeper meaning and the historical context.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Behind this ancient prophecy.
I'm excited.
Me too.
So where do we start?
Well, I think the most obvious place to start is with the setting itself.
Yeah.
The Euphrates River.
The Euphrates River. Yeah, what about it?
It's not just some random river.
Probably.
It's like the heart of so many ancient civilizations.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's the cradle of civilization.
Exactly. It's seen empires rise and fall.
Absolutely.
And it was there when some of the earliest writing systems were developed.
That's amazing.
It's almost like a character in this story.
I like that. Yeah.
With all this history and symbolism packed into it.
Yeah. And in a lot of cultures, rivers were seen as boundaries between different worlds.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like the world of the living and the world of the dead.
Oh, wow.
Or the known and the unknown.
Okay, so like a threshold.
Exactly. A liminal space.
Yeah, that adds like a whole other layer to this prophecy.
It really does.
Makes it even more eerie.
It does.
So, okay, we've got this setting. What about the angels themselves?
Yeah, the angel. What do we know about them?
Well, the book of Revelation, chapter 9, it describes these angels as being prepared for this really specific moment in time. Like, they're waiting for a certain hour, day, month, and year.
So they have a schedule.
Yeah, but that's pretty much all we get.
What do you mean?
We don't know their names or what they look like or anything about their past.
So they're a mystery.
Totally.
It's kind of creepy, actually.
Right. Like, all we know is that they're supposed to destroy a third of humanity.
Yeah, that's pretty terrifying when you think about it.
It's like they're this universal destructive force that could come from anywhere at any time.
Yeah, and because they're anonymous.
Yeah.
Makes them even scarier.
Or like they could be anyone or anything.
Right, and I think their anonymity makes them more relatable too.
Oh, how so?
Well, any group or generation can project their own fears onto these figures.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Because we don't know who they are.
Yeah.
You can imagine them as whatever scares us the most.
So it's like a blank slate for our anxieties.
Exactly.
But there is one specific detail.
What's that?
They're number 4.
Oh, yeah. 4 angels. Why 4?
Well, the number 4 has a lot of symbolic meaning in different cultures.
Yeah, like what?
The 4 cardinal directions, the 4 elements, the 4 seasons.
Oh, I see.
So in this context, the 4 angels could represent this total destructive power coming from every corner of the world.
That's a really interesting interpretation.
So we've got these 4 mysterious angels chained at this symbolically supercharged river, waiting to wreak havoc.
Right.
How do we even begin to make sense of all that?
Well, there are a couple of ways to look at it.
Okay, tell me more.
Some people interpret it literally,
Right.
believing that these angels were actual beings.
Like fallen angels or something.
Exactly. Like maybe they were imprisoned by a higher power until a certain time.
Okay, so that's the literal interpretation.
Right.
What about the metaphorical one?
Well, the metaphorical interpretation sees the angels as representing humanity's destructive potential.
So like the dark side of human nature.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And their chains could symbolize the restraints that keep that darkness in check.
Like morality or reason.
Yeah, and their release would mean that those restraints have broken down.
Leading to chaos and self-destruction.
Right.
So it's like a battle between our better angels and our worst impulses.
Exactly. And that makes you wonder which is more frightening.
I know, right? Literal angels of destruction or our own capacity for self-destruction?
It's a tough one.
But before we go too deep into the philosophical stuff, let's talk about the army.
Oh, yeah. The army they lead.
Because that adds a whole other dimension to this apocalypse.
It does. It's described as this massive and terrifying force.
Yeah.
With countless numbers riding on mounts of fire and brimstone.
That's some intense imagery.
It really is. It evokes this sense of overwhelming power.
Yeah, like something totally unstoppable.
Right. And utterly destructive.
It definitely takes the idea of divine retribution to the next level.
It does. So what do you think the army represents?
I mean, is it just a symbol of chaos?
It could be. Or maybe it represents the consequences of unleashing those destructive forces.
Whether they're literal angels or our own inner demons.
Exactly. The sheer scale of the army emphasizes just how high the stakes are.
And the video doesn't hold back on the details.
No, it's all very vivid and almost cinematic.
Right. It's like you can almost see it happening.
Yeah, and that definitely adds to the feeling of dread.
It's not just an abstract idea.
Yeah.
It's a very real and visceral threat.
I think it's meant to be a warning.
Oh, yeah.
About the potential consequences of our choices.
So these angels and their army could represent any force that threatens to disrupt the order of things, whether it's a literal army or something more abstract, like social upheaval or environmental collapse.
Right, and that brings us to the idea of apocalyptic thinking.
What's that?
It's not just about predicting the end of the world.
Okay.
It's a way of understanding history and human nature.
Oh, interesting.
It's about looking at these grand narratives of conflict and judgment and transformation.
So by understanding the genre of apocalyptic literature,
yeah,
we can get a deeper understanding of the message behind this prophecy.
Exactly, whether we take it literally or not.
Right. It allows us to engage with the text on a symbolic level and explore these themes of power and destruction.
And the cyclical nature of history.
This is also fascinating.
I know, right?
We've talked about the Euphrates River and the 4 angels and the army they command.
Yeah.
And we've even touched on how this prophecy connects to those deep-seated human anxieties about the future.
Yeah.
But there's still so much more to unpack.
Yeah, we haven't even gotten to the question of who's holding those angels back.
Oh, that's a good point. What kind of power could possibly restrain such a force?
It's a mystery.
It is. I guess we're just getting started with this deep dive.
I think so.
So listeners, stay tuned as we continue to unravel the mysteries of the 4 angels chained at the Euphrates River.
This is going to be good. Yeah, so who or what is actually holding these angels back?
Right. That's a big question.
It is.
The video hints at a few possibilities.
Oh, really? Like what?
Well, one idea is that they're held captive by something beyond our understanding, something connected to the Euphrates itself.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we were just talking about how the river is this liminal space.
Exactly. This boundary between worlds.
Right.
So maybe we're talking about ancient gods or some kind of cosmic beings that rule over those in-between spaces.
That sounds pretty intense.
It does, right?
It's straight out of a fantasy novel.
I know, but the video also mentions another possibility.
What's that?
A conflict within the celestial realm itself.
Okay, so like a war in heaven.
Exactly. Maybe these angels were once part of a heavenly host, but they rebelled and were defeated and imprisoned by other powerful beings.
Oh, so it's like a celestial prison break waiting to happen.
Yeah, basically. Okay. And it makes you wonder why chain them at the Euphrates specifically.
Right. Why not some otherworldly jail cell?
Well, that's where the symbolic geography comes in again.
Okay.
The Euphrates, as this threshold between realms, could represent the furthest point these destructive forces can be pushed away from the human world.
So it's like a cosmic containment zone.
Exactly. Keep your enemies close.
Right.
But your apocalyptic angels even closer.
Preferably chained to a river.
Exactly. But all this talk about celestial battles and imprisoned angels, it makes me think about the idea of divine order. If these angels are part of some big cosmic plan, does that mean their release is unavoidable?
That's the tricky part about all this apocalyptic stuff. Even knowing about the prophecy and feeling all this dread doesn't mean we can actually change anything.
It really makes you question free will versus destiny.
It does. If everything's already decided, what choices do we really have?
That's a tough one. But I also feel like there's a sense of agency in the prophecy itself.
What do you mean?
Like maybe it's a warning.
Okay.
So that we can actually change our ways and prevent disaster.
I see what you're saying.
Like a wake-up call.
Right. Some people might interpret it that way. As a call to action.
Exactly.
Or a reminder to think about our choices and try to create a more just and harmonious world.
So the knowledge of the prophecy could actually be a tool for positive change.
It could.
Instead of just waiting for the end.
Right.
We could actively work towards a better future.
Exactly. And maybe try to strengthen those metaphorical chains. That keep our own destructive tendencies in check.
That's a much more optimistic way to look at it.
It is.
But I'm still kind of stuck on those chains.
Oh, yeah, the chains themselves.
Yeah. What do they represent?
Well, they could be a lot of things.
Like what?
Divine will, maybe.
Okay.
Or the laws of nature. Or even that delicate balance of power that prevents chaos.
Right. So the strength might not be physical.
It might not be.
It could be something more conceptual.
Yeah.
Like an idea or a force we can't fully grasp. So maybe the chains are also metaphorical.
It could be.
Representing those things that keep humanity from self-destructing.
Like what?
Like empathy and compassion, cooperation.
Yeah, I like that interpretation.
So by strengthening those qualities within ourselves and our societies,
right,
we might be reinforcing those chains.
Exactly.
Making it harder for the destructive forces to break free.
I think that's a really important point.
Okay, that does give me a little more hope.
Good.
But I gotta ask about what happens when the angels actually do break free.
Oh yeah, the video goes into some pretty intense imagery there.
Right. It describes the earth and sky darkening.
Yeah, like a shadow spreading across the world.
Exactly. And the fabric of reality itself distorts.
It's like a cosmic horror movie.
I know. It's wild. But the video doesn't give us a specific date for this, does it?
No. It keeps the timing pretty vague.
Which just adds to the suspense.
It does. And it also emphasizes the timeless nature of the prophecy.
What do you mean?
Well, it's not about predicting a specific date.
Okay.
It's about recognizing this cyclical pattern of destruction and renewal.
So it's happened before and it could happen again.
Exactly.
So the release of the angels could represent any number of potential disasters.
Right, like war, famine, plague, environmental collapse.
Things that have unfortunately happened throughout history.
Yeah, and the point isn't to figure out exactly when it'll happen.
Okay.
It's about understanding the patterns and preparing ourselves for those challenges.
That's a much more nuanced approach than just waiting for the world to end.
Right. It's about being aware and prepared.
Okay, but that still leaves the question.
What's that?
What are we supposed to do with this knowledge?
Right. How do we prepare for something so vast and unpredictable?
Exactly.
Well, the video doesn't give us any easy answers.
Oh.
Or tell us exactly what to do.
Okay.
Instead, it focuses on cultivating a sense of awe and humility.
So it's more about a shift in perspective.
It is.
Than practical survival tips, like recognizing our place in this larger order.
Exactly. And maybe that shift in perspective is the key to getting through uncertain times.
Okay, I can see that. By acknowledging what's beyond our control, we might find a new kind of strength, a resilience that helps us adapt.
Right.
And keep going even when things are tough.
Exactly. Instead of trying to control the uncontrollable, we learn to ride the waves.
And find our balance in the chaos.
Exactly. But how do we cultivate that kind of resilience?
Right. What does that actually look like in practice?
That's a question everyone has to answer for themselves.
Okay.
But the video suggests that it starts with examining our values, deepening our connection to something bigger than ourselves.
Okay.
And finding a sense of purpose.
That goes beyond our own fears and desires.
Right.
So finding meaning and purpose even when faced with potential destruction.
Yeah. And building something that can withstand the storms.
Both literal and metaphorical.
Exactly. And maybe by doing those things, we can create a future where those apocalyptic angels never have a reason to break free.
That's a nice thought. But I still can't quite reconcile this idea of a benevolent divine order with the sheer destructive power of those angels.
Right. It does seem kind of extreme.
Like a really drastic way to get our attention.
It definitely raises questions about divine justice.
It does, and the purpose of suffering.
But maybe the answer isn't about trying to understand a higher power's motivations.
Okay.
Maybe it's about focusing on our own response
to the challenges we face.
Exactly. So not about blaming or questioning the divine plan.
Okay.
But taking responsibility for our actions.
And working towards a better future.
Regardless of what might be preordained.
So it's not about passively accepting our fate. It's about actively shaping our destiny.
Both individually and collectively.
This is all so thought-provoking.
It is, right.
We've covered so much ground, from the Euphrates River to the angels and their army.
Yeah.
And this whole concept of apocalyptic thinking.
It's a lot to take in.
It is. And through it all,
I
keep coming back to this question.
Like that.
What does this ancient prophecy mean for us today?
Right. How can we make sense of this message of destruction?
Yeah.
Alongside our own hopes for a better future.
It's a lot to process, but I think we're starting to see how this prophecy, even with its bleak message, can actually be inspiring and empowering.
Absolutely.
Because by wrestling with these images and themes, we're forced to confront those deep questions.
About human nature and our place in the universe.
And the choices we make when faced with uncertainty.
I think that's the real power of this prophecy.
It's not just doom and gloom.
No.
It's a call for introspection.
A mirror reflecting our own anxieties and aspirations.
Beautifully put. It's an invitation to look inward.
To examine our beliefs and values.
Yeah.
And to think about how we can create a future worthy of hope.
This has been an incredible journey.
It has.
But we're not quite finished yet.
What do you mean?
We still need to explore what it means to live on the banks of the Euphrates, so to speak.
Oh, I liked it.
To be aware of those chained angels.
Yeah.
To feel that potential for destruction always lurking beneath the surface.
Right.
And most importantly, how do we live with that knowledge without being consumed by fear and despair? This whole deep dive has been like walking a tightrope.
Oh, yeah.
Between hope and dread.
I know what you mean.
On one hand, we've got this terrifying prophecy about total destruction. But then there's also this potential for like transformation and renewal.
Yeah, I mean, that's what apocalyptic literature is all about, right?
It is.
It's not just about predicting the end.
Okay.
It's about exploring what a new beginning could look like.
Right, recognizing that even when things seem really dark, there's always that possibility of hope.
Always.
But how do we hold on to that hope when we're faced with all the challenges in the world today?
Right.
I mean, climate change, political instability, economic inequality.
That's a lot.
It feels like those angels could break free any second.
It can feel that way.
So how do we deal with that?
Well, I think that's where the wisdom of this ancient prophecy comes in.
Okay, tell me more.
Remember how the Euphrates River itself is a symbol of both creation and destruction?
Right, it's the cradle of civilization.
Exactly.
But also this boundary between realms.
A place where life and death kind of blur together.
So like a liminal space.
Yes, exactly. A threshold where transformation can happen.
Okay, so the message of the prophecy
could be that we're all standing on the banks of that river.
We are.
We have a choice to make.
We do.
Do we give in to fear and despair and let those destructive forces take over?
Yeah.
Or do we choose to transform,
to renew,
to find a new way of being in the world?
It's a powerful choice.
It is. It's like we're being called to be the guardians of those chains.
I like that.
To find that strength within ourselves, to hold back the darkness.
But how do we do that?
Right. Where do we even start?
Well, the video doesn't give us a step-by-step guide.
Of course not.
But it does suggest that we need to cultivate certain qualities.
Yeah. What kinds of qualities?
Things like compassion, courage, and a willingness to face our own shadows.
So it's not about finding some external solution, some magical answer to stop the apocalypse.
Not really.
It's about looking inward.
It is.
And focusing on personal transformation.
Exactly. The real battle isn't out there somewhere.
Okay.
It's happening within each of us. But doesn't that feel kind of small?
What do you mean?
Like, how can my own choices really make a difference when we're facing such huge global problems?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
But remember, the prophecy also talks about the army.
Oh, right. The army that follows the angels.
Yes, that vast and terrifying force. But that army is made up of individuals.
Okay.
Just like us.
I see what you're saying.
And if each person chooses to side with those destructive forces, then the prophecy basically becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
So you're saying that our individual choices do matter?
They do. They have a ripple effect.
That can either add to the darkness
or help to balance it out.
With goodness.
Exactly. And that's why the video emphasizes compassion.
Oh, okay.
And understanding, even for those we disagree with.
Because it's through compassion that we can break down those barriers.
The ones that divide us.
And build connections instead.
Right. We're all connected after all.
Part of this giant web of life.
We are, and our actions affect everything around us.
But that still feels overwhelming.
I know, it's a lot.
How can we change the world when there's so much negativity?
That's where hope comes in.
Okay, but how do we define hope?
Hope isn't about ignoring the bad stuff.
Okay.
Or pretending everything's perfect.
Right.
It's about acknowledging the challenges.
Yeah.
But still believing that a better future is possible.
But hope can feel really fragile sometimes.
It can. Especially when we're constantly seeing bad news.
Yeah, all the conflict and suffering.
Right. How do we keep that flame alive?
Exactly.
When it feels like it's being blown out?
Yeah.
That's where the Euphrates River metaphor comes back in.
Okay.
Remember, the river is a source of life.
It is.
A symbol of renewal and abundance.
Yeah.
And even though it can be destructive too.
Right.
Its waters eventually flow into the sea.
Okay.
Towards a greater sense of wholeness.
But even when there's chaos and destruction,
yeah,
there's a force pulling us towards unity and healing.
I believe there is.
And maybe that force is what we connect to when we choose compassion over fear.
Absolutely.
When we don't give up on a better world.
When we keep that hope alive.
This deep dive has been amazing.
It has.
We started with this prophecy about 4 angels.
Chained at the Euphrates.
And we've talked about hope and choice and transformation.
All because of a YouTube video.
It is pretty amazing what we've uncovered.
It is. It's like we've taken something ancient and connected it to our lives today.
To our own hopes and fears.
And the big questions we all face.
It's like finding a hidden map.
A guide for navigating these challenging times.
So, as we wrap things up, I want to leave you with one last thought.
Okay.
If the Euphrates is a threshold between worlds,
between the known and the unknown,
what does that say about the boundaries we create in our own lives?
What's waiting on the other side?
Of the lines we draw.
Of the limits we set for ourselves.
What would it take to break free from those chains?
And step into our full potential.
That's a powerful image to end on.
It is.
So as you go about your day,
think about those thresholds in your own life.
Where fear and doubt might be holding you back.
And ask yourself, what would it take to cross that river?
To embrace the unknown.
To unleash the incredible power within you.
Waiting to be set free.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
We'll see you next time.